The sun poured in through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Eloin Cafe, one of those airy rooftop brunch spots in downtown Boulder that my mom always insisted on for special occasions. The table was full. My parents, my younger sister Haley, a few aunts and uncles, and Grandpa Harold sitting proudly at the head, like always. It was his 76th birthday. Everyone clinked glasses of mimosas and laughter bounced off the glass walls. I hadn't planned on saying much. I was just there out of obligation, like every other year. I'd spent the night before calculating how many freelance hours I needed to cover rent for my garage apartment, so I wasn't exactly in the mood for bottomless champagne and fake family smiles. That's when it happened. Grandpa raised his glass toward me, his blue eyes shining. "My girl," he said, voice warm. "I'm so glad you're enjoying the apartment I got you. It's perfect for your minimalist taste, isn't it?" The mimosa turned acidic in my throat. I froze, glass midair. The table quieted. My mom's hand paused mid-reach for the sugar spoon. Haley looked up from her phone. Dad coughed suddenly, then reached for his water. Even the waiter slowed down, sensing something shift. I blinked. What apartment?" I said softly. Grandpa smiled wider, maybe thinking I was being modest. "The one near Baseline. Your father said you moved in right after graduation. I wired him the money so he could surprise you." My lips parted, but the words didn't come out. I glanced at my father, sitting across from me in his crisp blue shirt, the same shirt he wore the night he told me I needed to grow up and stop expecting handouts. "I live above a liquor store," I said louder this time, my voice steady. "A garage converted into a rental unit. It smells like motor oil and mothballs. That's where I've been the last 4 years." Silence fell like shattered glass. Grandpa's smile faltered. "What?" I looked directly at him. I never received an apartment. No keys, no paperwork, no mention. Dad dropped his fork. The clink echoed louder than it should have. Mom's face was pale, eyes darting. Haley lowered her phone slowly, finally paying attention. Grandpa sat back, hands gripping the sides of his chair. "But I gave your father $85,000 for your condo. I wired it right after your graduation ceremony. He told me you cried when you saw it." I laughed quietly, not bitterly, just the kind of laugh that happens when you realize everything you believed about your own family might be built on sand. "I never saw it, Grandpa," I said. "But I did cry. Plenty of nights, just not for the reason you thought." And just like that, the entire table shifted. One truth had cracked the whole illusion. No one said a word. Not my mom, who was now stirring her untouched coffee like it might reveal a way out of the moment. Not Haley, who sat frozen, eyes flitting between Dad and me. And certainly not my father, whose jaw had gone stiff, shoulders raised just slightly like a man bracing for impact. Grandpa looked like he'd been hit. Not physically, but deeply. His mouth opened, then closed again as if his brain was still buffering what he'd just heard. I wired it to your dad's account," he said slowly. "He told me he used it as a down payment, said he was handling all the paperwork for you so you wouldn't be stressed during finals." My stomach twisted. I remembered that month, working late-night shifts at the tutoring center, eating instant ramen, falling asleep with my laptop still open. There had been no talk of surprise apartments, only the pressure to make it on my own. "I've been paying rent in cash," I said quietly, "to an old man named Les who lives downstairs and forgets my name every time I drop it off. The ceiling leaks when it rains. There's a space heater I move between rooms." Mom finally spoke. "Sweetheart, there must be a misunderstanding. Maybe your father didn't want to overwhelm you. He thought you'd find your own path." I looked at her flatly. "My own path led me to sleep next to a broken washing machine for 4 years. Dad cleared his throat. "You always said you didn't want help, that you were proud of figuring things out alone." "I asked you for a job lead after college," I shot back. "You told me to apply at gas stations first, build character." That landed. Even Haley blinked. Grandpa stood up slowly, the kind of slow that comes from rage held tightly under control. "Riley," he said, his voice surprisingly calm. I want to see where you live. I stared at him. Why? He looked at me, not with pity, but with conviction. Because if it's anything like you just described, then your father didn't just lie to you. He lied to me. And I've spent too many years believing my family tells the truth. I hesitated, then nodded. Outside the restaurant, the breeze was cool and dry, carrying the scent of pine and exhaust. I unlocked my old Civic, the one with the broken air vent and the door that only opened from the inside. Grandpa climbed in without a word. We didn't speak during the drive, but everything we needed to say was already hanging in the silence between us. The car rumbled up the cracked alley behind the liquor store. I parked next to a rusted-out dumpster and killed the engine. This is it, I said. Grandpa looked around. He didn't say anything. His eyes lingered on the slanted metal staircase leading to the upstairs unit, then to the warped wooden door beneath it, the entrance to mine. I pulled out my keys and unlocked the door. It groaned open on tired hinges. Inside, the space was dim and narrow. A single overhead bulb flickered like it wasn't sure if it wanted to live. The carpet was threadbare. The walls were tinged yellow near the ceiling. A portable space heater buzzed softly in the corner. A mattress lay on the floor next to a shelf made from stacked milk crates. Welcome, I said, trying to sound neutral. Don't mind the smell. The guy upstairs smokes cigars at midnight. Grandpa stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning every corner. His hand brushed the wall near the boiler, then settled on the edge of the mattress. This is what you've been living in? He asked, voice rough. I nodded. Since college ended. He sat down on the mattress like his knees had suddenly forgotten how to hold him. He didn't speak for several seconds. Then he exhaled, a deep, heavy breath that sounded like it came from someplace far beneath his ribs. Your dad told me you were thriving, he said. Said you moved into a bright loft near the university. Told me you turned down help because you wanted to do it your own way. I bit my lip. I asked him for help once. He said, and I quote, "You wanted to be an adult, so go pay adult rent." Grandpa's shoulders stiffened. I gave him $85,000. Told him I wanted you to have a home, a safe place to grow. He said you cried when you walked in. I did cry, I murmured. Just not for that reason. He rubbed a hand across his face. I trusted him. Silence thickened the air between us. Then he looked up. I want to fix this. I crossed my arms. How? I want to go to the bank. With you. I want to see where every cent went. And if it's what I think, if he took it, I'm not just going to sit back and pretend nothing happened. I blinked, unsure what surprised me more. That someone finally believed me, or that someone was willing to act. Okay, I said quietly. Let's see what he buried. By 9 a.m. the next morning, we were sitting across from a bank manager in a sleek office overlooking downtown Boulder. Grandpa had called in a favor to get us seen first thing, even though it was a Sunday. His tone on the phone had been firm, almost unfamiliar, like steel wrapped in velvet. The woman behind the desk, Ms. Eller, adjusted her glasses and clicked through her screen, her red nails tapping against the keyboard. You said this was regarding a wire transfer from a Mr. Harold Morgan to a Thomas Whitmore dated 4 years ago? She asked. Yes, Grandpa said. It was for my granddaughter's condo. The memo line even said it. Ms. Eller nodded, then pointed at the monitor. Here it is, May 22nd. Transfer of $85,000 from your account ending in 7231 to Thomas Whitmore, with the note, down payment, Riley's condo. She turned the screen toward us. There it was, black and white, undeniable. Grandpa gave a grim nod. And after that, what happened to the funds? Ms. Eller clicked again, scanning. Then her expression darkened. 6 days later, she said slowly, the entire amount was moved into a separate investment account under Mr. Thomas Whitmore's name only. No mention of real estate transactions, no escrow transfers, just a full move of funds. My stomach dropped. Are there any records of a home purchased in my name? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She shook her head. No property purchases, no title activity, Nothing involving your name and any ownership records with us or our partnered lenders. Grandpa let out a long breath. Then, in a voice calm but lethal, he said, "Can we get a printed record of all this? Every transaction. Every detail." "Yes, sir," she replied and stood to prepare the documents. When the door clicked shut behind her, Grandpa leaned back in his chair. "He didn't just lie to you, Riley," he said. "He stole from both of us." I looked down at my hands, clenched into fists in my lap. I thought I was just being punished for not being the golden child, but he was living off what was supposed to be mine. "And telling me you were thriving," Grandpa added bitterly. "He looked me in the eyes month after month and told me you were doing great." The door opened, Ms. Eller returned with a folder and handed it over. Grandpa didn't even glance at it before tucking it into his coat pocket. As we stood to leave, he turned to me. "This isn't just family drama anymore," he said. "It's fraud. It's betrayal. And I'm done staying silent about it." I nodded. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to speak clearly. "Then let's go home. I think it's time we had a conversation with my parents." The last time I stood on the porch of my parents' house, I was holding a duffel bag and a college diploma they barely acknowledged. That day, Mom kissed my cheek and said, "Don't worry, you'll land on your feet." Then she turned back to frost cupcakes for Haley's graduation party. Today, I wasn't alone. Grandpa stood beside me, gripping the folder like it weighed more than just paper. I rang the doorbell. The door opened to Dad, wearing sweatpants and a University of Colorado hoodie, like it was just another lazy weekend. His eyes flicked from me to Grandpa. He blinked. "What's this?" "We need to talk," Grandpa said firmly. "I'm kind of in the middle of—" "Sit down," Grandpa interrupted, his voice quiet but razor sharp. Dad froze. Inside, Mom appeared in the hallway, towel slung over her shoulder. Her smile faded when she saw our expressions. In the living room, the fireplace was off, but the tension was thick enough to spark on its own. I sat across from my parents while Grandpa placed the folder on the coffee table. He didn't open it. Not yet. "You told me," he began, looking directly at my father, "that you bought Riley a condo with the money I gave you, that she was doing well, and that she didn't want to bother me with gratitude." Dad shifted uncomfortably. I meant to." "No," I said, my voice sharp. "You meant to keep it." Mom gasped softly. "Thomas, please tell me you didn't—" He raised his hand, but no words followed. Grandpa opened the folder slowly and slid the bank statements toward him. "You took $85,000 meant for your daughter's future and stuffed it into your own account," Grandpa said, not yelling, just stating a fact. "And then you let her live like that, while you remodeled your kitchen and bought that new truck." Dad's jaw twitched. I was holding it, for when she was ready. "Don't," I said louder. "Don't lie again. You told me I was lazy, entitled, and needed to work harder. All while using the money that was meant to help me start my life." Mom stared at him, silent. Her hand trembled as she reached for a glass of water. "I've already spoken with the lawyer," Grandpa said. "You're going to repay every cent, or I'll press charges." Dad opened his mouth, but no defense came, just silence. "And one more thing," Grandpa added. "You're going to explain yourself, in front of everyone, at brunch next Sunday." I turned to look at Dad one last time. The man who once told me I'd never make it without him couldn't even meet my eyes. I wasn't there for revenge. I was there for truth. And truth was louder than any lie he'd ever told. Brunch was held at the same place as before, Eloin Cafe. Same white linen tablecloths, same panoramic mountain views, but this time, I wasn't seated near the edge, tucked behind an ice bucket or next to the coat rack. This time I sat beside Grandpa, at the head of the table. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them had shown up. Maybe for the free pastries, maybe for the drama. Either way, they were here. And so was Dad, seated across from me, 5 seats down. He looked like he hadn't slept. His face was drawn, his usual half-smile replaced by a tight, unreadable line. Mom sat beside him, lips pressed, eyes blank. Haley hadn't even come. When everyone settled, Grandpa stood slowly, glass in hand, not to toast, but to silence the room. "I appreciate you all coming," he began. "I know this isn't a normal Sunday brunch, but something happened last week that needs to be addressed. Publicly." The clinking of silverware stopped. A waiter froze mid-pour. Grandpa turned slightly toward me. "4 years ago, I gifted $85,000 to Thomas Whitmore, my son, for the sole purpose of helping Riley, my granddaughter, purchase her first apartment. I was told she received it. I was told she moved in. I was told she cried with joy." He paused, looking around the room, his voice firm and clear. "That was a lie." A ripple of shock moved through the table. "I learned last week that Riley never got that apartment, never saw a single dollar of what was meant for her. Instead, Thomas moved the funds into his private investment account and let his daughter live in a converted garage with a boiler next to her bed. He told her she was entitled, lazy, that she needed to work harder, all while spending the money meant to help her build a future." No one spoke. My aunt covered her mouth. One cousin looked down. Another whispered something to her husband. Even the staff had paused, pretending to tidy napkins just to listen. Dad sat stone still. Grandpa turned fully toward him. "Thomas," he said, "you betrayed your daughter, and you lied to me. That trust is broken. As of today, you are formally removed from any financial authority over my estate. Every trust, every asset, every future transaction, it's being restructured." Then, calmly, Grandpa reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "I'd like you to read this aloud." Dad stared at the letter like it was poison. His hand shook as he took it. Slowly, voice shaking, he began. "To my family, I stole from my daughter, Riley Morgan. I took funds meant for her future and lied about their purpose. I misrepresented her character to my father and others. I accept full responsibility for the harm caused and will repay the amount in full within 6 months. I am deeply sorry." When he finished, he folded the paper without looking up. There was no applause, no dramatic gasps, just silence. But in that silence, I felt something shift. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't pitied. I was seen. And for the first time in years, I breathed like the air finally belonged to me. The next morning, I woke up in a place that didn't buzz or creak or smell like stale smoke. Real windows, hardwood floors, a bathroom that locked. Grandpa had done more than restructure his trust. He'd quietly called a realtor the week before and purchased a modest but beautiful 2-bedroom condo on the east side of Boulder. In my name. "This is your restart," he told me, handing me the keys. "No strings. Just truth." It didn't feel real until I stood by the window and saw the mountains, unobstructed by iron bars or peeling blinds. The silence in the room wasn't heavy like it had been in the basement. It was soft, peaceful, the kind that let you think clearly. I unpacked in slow, careful movements. Every item I placed, a stack of notebooks, a chipped coffee mug, my lucky calculator, felt like a declaration. I was here, and I belonged. After everything, I thought I'd feel triumphant. But what I really felt was stillness. Not emptiness, not numbness, just space to breathe. That afternoon, I sat at my new kitchen table and pulled out my old laptop. Its hinge was loose, and the screen flickered when I opened too fast. Still, it booted up like an old friend. I clicked into a folder I hadn't touched in over a year. Projects. Design work. It was filled with spreadsheets, floor plans, housing cost comparisons, and urban efficiency models I'd started drafting back in college, before rent and exhaustion forced me to shove dreams behind freelance invoices. I stared at the screen. Then I added a new file, Riley Morgan Portfolio Revamp. And I started. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was building. By the end of the week, I'd uploaded my refreshed portfolio to freelance architecture platforms and sent a cold email to a Boulder-based firm that specialized in sustainable community housing. Their work was bold, human-centered, and they always seemed to be thinking outside the box. 3 days later, I got a reply, then an interview. In the meeting, the creative director flipped through my work with curious eyes. When she stopped at one concept labeled Living Small, Living Smart, she looked up. "You designed this?" "Yes." "This feels lived, I smiled. It is. I've been living it. That afternoon, I walked out with a contract in hand. Not just a gig, but a project lead. I texted Grandpa the news. He didn't reply with a party emoji or a congratulations. He just sent 3 words, "Told you so." And for once, I didn't roll my eyes. I laughed. Because he had. 3 months later, the table was mine. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. My brunch table in my new living room, surrounded by chairs I chose myself. None of them mismatched or folding or pulled in from someone else's corner of comfort. Sunlight poured in through the wide, east-facing windows. I didn't need to flick on a bulb or light a candle just to see my own hands. There was warmth in every corner of the space. Real warmth, not the kind that hums from an overworked space heater. Grandpa arrived first, holding a bouquet of wildflowers and a bakery box. "Don't expect me to cook?" he teased. "I'm here strictly for emotional support and cinnamon rolls." He looked around the condo, nodding in quiet approval like he had every time he visited. He never said much about the place anymore. Not because it wasn't worth celebrating, but because he understood it wasn't about granite counters or fresh paint. It was about what it meant. I had made it out, and now I was letting people in. Soon, my cousin Eli arrived, then my old roommate from college. My circle had changed, grown tighter, warmer, smaller but stronger. No one talked over me. No one rolled their eyes when I mentioned my work. In fact, Eli asked thoughtful questions about a floor plan I had sketched for a tiny home project launching next spring. My parents weren't invited. Dad had repaid the money. Every cent. No excuses, no apologies. Just a bank transfer and a short email that read, "Done." That was fine. Some truths don't need a response. Some people's absence is a greater peace than their presence ever offered. Haley sent a vague text weeks ago. "Didn't know things were that bad. Hope you're okay." I didn't answer. She hadn't asked where I lived. She never came looking. And I wasn't going back.